start. We've got Rahul with us and Ashwin. Rahul backed multiple admits, comes with a family business entrepreneur background. I know two of us are coming from similar backgrounds. So any questions that you have for entrepreneurs, family business people, making it to top business schools, I think Rahul is your guy today. We've got Ashwin coming from finance and accounting background. I'm going to, of course, hand over the mic to help them introduce themselves better. But they've backed multiple admits. Rahul has also backed scholarships. Ashwin is headed to UK. Rahul, I think, is headed to the US, but we are going to talk about that in a bit. So over to both of you. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'd like to kick it off if that's okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Rahul. I am, as Paridi said, a second-gen entrepreneur based out of Bangalore, and I have about 6 years of work experience as we speak. And yeah, thanks to MBA and beyond, I have a good number of admits in hand. And eventually, I have decided to enroll with UNC, with whom I'll be starting in late July. And currently, I'm running around with my visa and all of that. A little bit about me. My passions involve all about soccer. I'm also an avid animal enthusiast. So I really like, pets and everything. In fact, I have a dog in the next room, which I'm hoping doesn't bark and disturb us. But so I've also been involved in one of the NGOs, which helps with these animals and stuff. And yeah, I'm excited to be here today and answer anybody's questions, however weird or out of the blue it may come to me, and I'll do my best to give you some value through this conversation.
Thanks a lot, Rahul. Before Ashwin, you can go, since there is an extension of the introduction that people are asking for it. Rahul, do you mind talking a little bit about your family business? This are like whatever you'd like to throw some light on.
Yeah. So family business. So I've actually worked for two companies. The first year out of college, I was with a manufacturing firm where I was a trainee. And I realized probably 6 months into the job how much I regretted my decision of going there. And I thought, okay, I'll stick it out for a year. And that's exactly when, a couple of exciting opportunities popped up at our family business, which I'll come to shortly, what it is we do. And I thought that would be a perfect sort of a landing pad for me to make that transition into the business. So we're a 25-year-old business started by my father in 1999. Essentially, we are what we call an EPC business. So it's a B2B industrial services business. Hardcore industrial, you could say. So most of these industrial plants that you see where automation and manufacturing gets done, that's where we do a bulk of our projects. And we're focused more of late in the energy space, predominantly in the nuclear, green hydrogen, and also a little bit in the automotive space. So the entire Toyota plant in Bangalore has in fact been done by us. And we've also done projects with ISRO and a few other central government agencies as well. And I think that sort of helped me get my foundation, laid when I was in with the business. But there was always something missing, coming from a very technical degree. It was sort of like a learning on the go sort of a job. And I thought, okay, now is the time that I can take that next step in my career and pursue that management degree. And that's when the whole cycle of applying and getting an MBA started. So yeah, that's about me. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thanks a lot, Rahul. Very interesting. Ashwin, over to you. Maybe you can introduce yourself. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Paridi and Rahul. So hi, everyone. I'm Ashwin. I come from a commerce background. I've been pursuing actuarial science. And I've been working in the Indian retirement benefit space for almost 5 years now. I'm an incoming MBA student at Imperial College London this fall. And my passion project is my calligraphy startup that I have on the side. I'm extremely passionate about calligraphy and all things art, I say. It's my pleasure to be here today and probably for my 2 cents for everybody's journey ahead.
Thanks a lot, Ashwin. Did you talk about your calligraphy startup in your application extensively or just touched on it a little bit?
Most definitely. I think I did base a couple of essays specifically on that.
Yeah. Do you mind giving maybe a little bit of example before, of course, I jump onto the questions? Because I think we forget about the passions that we pursue and we don't really talk about them in our applications. It's just a good reminder, like to be talking about your passions and showcase your personality. So if you give us maybe throw some light on how you talked about it.
So I did have a couple of questions, let's say there was one question which was, what is your most proudest non-academic achievement? So that's where I entirely based that essay throughout this startup. I started it back in COVID when, all of us had some extra time with us, the first lockdown when nobody knew what to do. the 21 days. That's when I actually went back to calligraphy. I'd always been very much into art, painting, watercolor. Calligraphy was something that had recently got my attention, and then I learned it through the Instagram videos, YouTube videos of that time. And then I started off with making my own Instagram page at first. And I started getting orders. So that's how the journey began. It was very organic, nothing forced there, because for me, I was just putting out my work out there on Instagram. And then I started seeing the industry, getting connected with more experienced calligraphers out there. And I think the most difficult part for me was actually how to price that, because lately based on your art, and you're practically just writing letters. So, should it be based on the product, or should it be a per alphabet pricing? That's how, all the things came through. And those were the experiences that I detailed in my essay, along with, what were the sales that I would make in the last 3 years, let's say.
Interesting. So you've been basically monetizing that, but maybe just not enough to quit your job.
Yeah.
Sorry guys, just joking around it, because that happens. I know like all of us have this bug of entrepreneurship in us. We all want to do something, a side hustle. It really like...
It's also very different, pursuing it as a hobby and then converting it into a full-time business. Because as a hobby, it's more like I do it when I want to. But when you start, you're hit up with orders. So there's that compulsion that also kicks in.
Absolutely. So as Ashwin was talking about it, I'm just going to share my screen. Let me know when you guys can see it. There's one aspect of a mirror that I really like to read, when candidates come on board, even though I'm not directly related to their application journey, especially when they kick off working on their, essays. But I really like to read their branding part. And I was reading Rahul's and Ashwin's branding, but I'm not going to, of course, expose that as of now because it was very interesting. However, this is the part which is the most exciting part for me to read, not the career trajectory, not the professional journey. So, and I think it is something that we don't really devote ourselves, to think about. So look at this person talking about the professional journey in more than 1,500 words. And that happens with most candidates, by the way. Like, so the question is, describe your career trajectory after graduating. Whatever you've done, the choices you've made, why you made them, what was the career path that you chose. While the question that asks you to talk about your personal aspirations, try not to revolve around your professional life. It's only 82 words. And this is not just one candidate, it happens to almost everybody. So while Ashwin was talking about it and how she talked about her passion project, I think, so basically one of the things that we're doing this month until 29th of May, we are offering some merit-based scholarship, and we changed the criteria, or we're going to offer merit-based scholarship. It's not going to be on your GMAT score. It's not going to be on how many achievements you have in your, kitty. We really want to know you, what you are outside of your workspace. And that's a little different because, to be honest, at MBA and beyond, it gives us a lot of help when our consultants are trying to dig into your values and really showcase a personality to a business school. Because you can be a 770 scorer, you could just be doing a 9-to-5 job, no hobbies, no social impact. I'm sorry, we will not make it through to a top school, no matter how hard we try. Because if we've just been doing our jobs, which is just work, and there's no life, we are not able to show work life together, and we're not going to be very empathetic global leaders that business schools are looking for. So personalities really help us, talk about what values we bring to the table, not so much our achievements that we bagged in the job, unless, of course, you've taken like multiple, since you guys will have on an average of 3 to 5 years of experience, you might not be so much on a leadership role where you have been tackling very challenging problems. So yes, we try to dig into your leadership stories, but do not let go of your passion outside of your career trajectory. Just an important food for thought for everybody to start thinking when you're, really stressing about what our MBA application is going to look like. Start with your passions. Maybe you'll get some cues from there on and try to then connect it with your professional journey. Okay, I think now we're ready to take up some questions. So one of the questions, and please feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions coming to your mind, or brain dump in the chat window. So how to align the profile with admissions committee's expectations? They want to know your viewpoint on this?
I'd like to start if it's okay. So the way I'd answer that question is that there is no one size fits all sort of an approach that you can take for business school admissions. I learned it the hard way. So I'd like to give some background on that. So I have, of course, been into this process 2 years. I applied with a different consultant whose name I won't reveal right now. But I think it was about 11 schools, all 11 rejects. Nothing changed that much, I would say, for my next year. Some were reapplying schools, some were new schools. There's a good combination. But then the approach changed and suddenly I got admits. And I think to answer the question again, I want to lay emphasis that it largely depends on the school. And I think the place to start would be to interact with current students and sort of understand the lay of the land there, because I know some schools are highly local when it comes to placement. So if you go to a highly specialized local school in Atlanta and say, I want a job in New York, it's not going to, be very cohesive. So you got to understand first what they're good at, what kind of people fit in. And the best way to do that is to start talking with current students, alum, or if you can connect with the adcoms, do that. And once you get a hang of what it is that they are looking for, maybe you can see if you fit that mold or not, rather than just selecting 10 schools and going for it. I think that's how one should go about. And then once you have a good list of schools under your belt, in the safety, reach, stream categories, then I think it'll be a lot easier for you to make your story cohesive and then move into branding and whatnot that MBA and beyond offers. I think that would be a good starting point.
Yeah, I think anything, Ashwin, you want to add? I think you summed it up really well, Rahul. But yeah, Ashwin.
Okay.
I think just to add to it, the other thing I'd say is to be very genuine when you are writing your application, because the adcom should see you written all over in your application, and then the other things will simply follow. So practically highlighting the choices that you've taken so far and showing them that school, in terms of the resources offered, faculty, the location, is what that you need to reach your life goal and make an impact, to show that school is the missing piece in the jigsaw puzzle of your life is what they're looking for.
Absolutely. So I think like how Rahul and Ashwin are talking about this. So one is the genuinity of your personality or everything. And I want to club it all together, like genuinity of who you really are. I won't say that sometimes, applicants also ask me, what if I want to be a product manager or I want to be, management consultant? Of course, the most expressed post-MBA goals in every applications, we all know that. And I really want to talk about it. Sometimes, of course, we also advise you not to if your application is not supporting that. Now, this does not mean that you're not being genuine. This means that you're being rational. So there is a difference between being very rational about what you're saying and being genuine. So if you're being genuine and rational together, I think business schools will appreciate you. While, of course, there are different hacks and frameworks on identifying the best fit schools for you. Usually what we advise is that, let's say if you match with the values of business school by more than 50% and you fall in the average GMAT window nicely, then you're good. While let's say if your GMAT is really low, but if you are 100% match on the value system of the business school, then let's give it a shot, because we have seen people getting through, even with 640, 680 to some of the top schools like NCR, Wharton, LBS, and even back scholarships. So business schools are really not hell-bent on a certain kind of a profile. They really want to understand how fit you are to the school. As much as you can prove that, go for it. But yes, you need to necessarily talk to the alums. You need to necessarily talk to the students at different schools. You need to get the vibe of the school, and you need to prove that you, of course, you fit the vibe of a certain school. That really helps. It also helps in bagging scholarships, not just getting an admit even after. So let's move on to the next question. And next one is strategies for addressing application weaknesses in low scorers or limited experience. I think Ashwin can start with that.
I think this is something which is very apt. So low GMAT or a low GPA in an undergrad does impact the admission to a top school. It's almost like, imagine you're taking part in a race where people with an average score are on the start line. The ones above average are some points ahead the start line, and you are a bit behind the start line itself. So assuming all things are constant, you need to outshine the other elements of your application so that this does not impact your outcome. In my case, I had a 640 for my GMAT, which was considerably a lower score, but then my aim was to actually target the schools where I fall in the range at least, so that I chose my school selection very carefully, of course, with the help of my consultant at MBA and beyond. So we did categorize schools into the safety, dream, and the dream bucket. And that's how I went ahead. But I would highly recommend saying that incorporating other aspects to decide your lower score is the key here. This could be through your work or through your ability to showcase the same numerical ability that GMAT. So all are these are practically, I think we'll also cover this in the subsequent questions and where I can detail them further. But you need to have other parts in your application that can substantiate your lower score.
Absolutely, Ashwin. Rahul, do you want to talk about that also, especially because you got multiple admits and some places you were also a little lesser than the average, but you still made it through. Yeah.
I think when it comes to, I belong to probably the worst pool of candidates, very nightmarish pool called the Indian Male Engineer Group. And even you might is not the best. I have a 710. So for our group, it's considered below average. And I remember I've spoken to more than 30, 40 odd people even before I started the process. And they were all like, Indian male engineer, you need 30, 40 points above the average and all. And I'm not going to lie, it is going to do you a lot of good. But if you don't, I think the only downside is you might not get as much scholarship as you would hope. I don't want to sugarcoat that. It definitely does help, in our category at least. And because I've applied to almost 24 schools, I think I've seen that trend. So that's the only downside. But I wouldn't say it's going to necessarily affect your admission chances. As you said, if somebody comes with, so let's say low score, I consider myself as a low score, relatively to the pool I belong to, and maybe not as much in comes to low experience, I'm at average. So over there, I think the difficulty would be finding differentiators, right? Maybe you don't have the very typical leadership experience of managing people or something like that. For me, my differentiator was, the fact that it was a family business. And eventually, when I think the last couple of years or so, I was lucky enough to manage people. And it was a very practical thing, and it's not easy because even though my name is there on the door, there are people from IIT Delhi who's running multiple departments and all, and they can have a lot of headweight. So as a 25-year-old, 26-year-old, when you have to get things done from them and you have to convince them, it takes a lot of effort, and you need to be very careful with the way you communicate, and you need to be very apt, at certain things. So that taught me a lot over the last few years. But yeah, going back to the question, I think the differentiators can be anything. When you talk about leadership experience, it need not be the typical leadership experience. You could even touch upon maybe the drive to do something, that you recommended something at a team meeting. I mean, they know you have less than 3 years of work ex, the adcom not expecting some, very extremely good work ex or something, or something like that. They know you're just fresh out of college and that you're still learning. So if you can highlight drive, or that you were at least proactive in participating, and that you were recognized for some of it and showing some impact, then maybe that's a good way to start. And of course, if you have a good extracurricular background, I think that also helps offset these limitations.
Absolutely. I'd like to, now that everybody talked, both of you really talked about very meaningful stuff, and I know some of us could be very early in the journey to be thinking like that, and it gets too overwhelming for everybody to think, especially when we're thinking schools. Which schools is usually the first question that I get asked. While I really want to emphasize that you can know your bucket of schools, but to know the schools where you're going to be applying to, I think you need to know yourself first. And I think that's where we all lack, because we try to pick the schools looking at the standards of the averages that we're seeing for different kinds of schools. And this is something that I think, of course, MBA and beyond, I think for the process that we follow, at least we make sure that you get to know yourself first before you talk about the schools. And I think a majority of the applicants who start working with MBA and beyond, the feedback that at least I've gotten, it's because they were lost in terms of, finding the right school. And even, when you work with a certain consultant or anyone, they're expecting you to know the school. And I think that's a very big expectation on somebody who is not sure about their values, about their strengths, their achievements, their weaknesses, and able to identify where am I falling, best fit, and what am I really going to be doing. So it's nobody's fault, and I know it's usually the normal user or an applicant journey going to a top business school. That which school? Okay, this school because of credibility. Don't care if they're helping me achieve what I want to achieve in my long run, or how do I position myself in the global opportunity in the next 5 years. However, going to a business school is not the end game. Like, it's not the destination. You want to be somewhere else after your MBA. And there are a lot, especially looking at the economic conditions of the world right now, there are a lot of things that you have to bring into perspective. You have to see, let's say, if you're coming from marketing, if you're thinking that you're going to be I was just having a chat with one of an applicant. She really wants to apply to EASA and HEC Paris, but she wants to go for marketing. So my honest feedback would be that if you think in marketing, you don't know Spanish, you don't know French, it's going to be very difficult to land a job, because you have to understand that in the European market, if marketing is your forte, you need to know the language. So these are the kind of things you need to understand at which school, which geography. A lot of it kind of needs to come into picture, and you leverage your strengths to pull in which school you're going to be applying to. And I think convincing the AdCom part of it will become way too easy. Once you know, okay, I know I am big on community building. Why not I apply to, let's say, Stanford or STEM? If I'm big on international experience, I want to consider in CIAT, no matter if I'm a GMAT, low GMAT scorer, I have 3.5 years of international experience, they will really consider. Okay, so yeah, and I think...
You did a point to the list of schools. I'm so sorry to cut you off.
No, go on. My Zoom is having an issue. So guys, in 10 minutes, I think it's going to cut off, but I'll relaunch the meeting in a minute. It happened in the last session as well. I'm not sure what's happening. I have to write to Zoom. But yeah, Rahul, you can talk.
I had a very important point in mind, since you were on the topic of the right selection of schools.
Yeah.
A lot of the candidates that come in, including myself, we come in with a lot of hefty expectations. Because, it's very easy to get swayed looking at certain employment reports, the numbers. Everybody wants to make money. Okay. So it's very easy to get swayed. But I'm not saying don't target them, but I'm just saying have a realistic mix. So there's a category called ambitious, and then there's another category called over ambitious. And I was that the first time I did it. So, speaking from experience, I can say that there was no differentiating factor between those schools. You could say almost all of them, considering my profile, were in the between reach and dream, at least, right? So M7's only top 15 of only. I was like, I can't settle below that, So, but I didn't understand how these schools were helping me. I would just go behind the stats, and that's a very rookie mistake to do. And then going forward, I realized what people throw around the word fit a lot with schools, and I never really got the hang of what that meant or how it's supposed to be. In retrospect, I get it. I understand that it means a lot more than it actually I thought it. But you can really speak with some people, because right now I'm enrolling with UNC. I had multiple admits, so it's not that I did not have a choice. But speaking with some of the people at UNC, we have this big WhatsApp group of all people enrolling. And I don't know, as you said, there's like a vibe that I'm able to connect with. And I don't know, subconsciously, it's just making me think that the AdComs are looking for certain traits that you bring out in your applications. So definitely it matters. And I would circle back to that first point I made, talk to as many people as you can, because it's never a bad thing. You might learn repeatedly the same things, but just one extra thing from somebody that you've not heard from before can make all the difference in your application. So yeah, choose your schools wisely, make a good balance of schools, I would say, and keeping in mind your goals first, that, okay, I want to do this, whether you put that on paper or not, that's a different thing. But keeping in mind that these are my goals and these are the schools that can get me there, I think that's the way to start your journey, when it comes to picking schools at least.
I'm going to be using what Rahul just said to share my screen yet again. And I just want to talk about that, at least in MBA and beyond process, school selection is actually happening in step 6, because we want to know you first and we want you to know yourself first, not from your own perspective. There's a little section where we're going to ask you to share 3 really important, and this is also again my favorite part, guys, where we ask you to share 3 very important people closest to you who you in and out in an unbiased way to share it with us. And then we, of course, reach out to them to get a 360-degree understanding of your personality, your strengths, your weaknesses. And it really goes a long way, I feel, because we can be very biased about our strengths and weaknesses and achievements, right? But people who really know us personally and professionally, they are going to tell us, as long as they want to do justice to you, they are not going to, of course, sugarcoat it and butter it, but they are going to tell the real thing. So you have to really pick people who will be as brutally honest as possible about yourself. And you have no idea how that really changes the game, how you think about your application, you think about your strengths and weaknesses when you're falling short of your a lot of times people fall short of their weaknesses, especially when they have lesser number of years of experience. So I was having this really good catch up with all our team of consultants, and we were talking about what's the biggest difference that you see between younger candidates and candidates with, let's say, 10 plus years of experience, going to the same school, of course, with same regular program, but they have their own reasons. There's that the younger people think that they've achieved a lot and they've got like so much in their kitty, but while it's the other way around for older candidates who have 2.5, 3 years of candidates, they think, oh, I have this achievement, I've got this medal, I've really been promoted this far. While the older candidate feels like I have so many weaknesses, and it's very hard for them to come up with biggest achievements, and they're talking more on failure. Then everybody unanimously said that. So it's like, start thinking about both sides, because we could be biased about ourselves, and I think we could get our friends and family to tell us more about it, and you can start documenting that even if you're not, in the process of writing your application right now. When you're doing that, you have your conversation with the people that Rahul and Ashwin are suggesting from schools, and you talk about, do you think these strengths match with the vibe of the school or the value of the school? Do you think a weakness this big is going to hamper my chances of making it to a top business school? These are the questions that you ask, and then they will give you an honest feedback, because they will tell you about what the school really values. So keep on collecting feedback on yourself. I think that's the best approach to helping you understand yourself, and then trying to understand whether the school is a good fit for me or not. Okay, before time runs out, I am announcing it one more time, and then we restart, of course, if it runs out, that we are doing merit-based scholarship for 10 people. But like I said, the clause this time is not your GRE GMAT score. It's not your professional achievements. It's actually your personality. So anything that the feedback that we get from your profile evaluator on your personality is what's going to help you. So we're redefining what merit means in the world of MBA and beyond, at least on the scale of, 1 to 10. So trying to do a little experiment, see, because it really helps us improve the success rate for us and also the candidates. And we really want people, to outshine with their personalities rather than just a number on their resume or, a percentage in class 10 or 12 that does not really say anything about what we're doing today. So let's move on to the next question. And guys, please bear with us if it runs out 3 minutes, 26 more seconds. We can take a 5-minute break and then we can come back. So the next question to both of you, Rahul and Ashwin, it is how to demonstrate, and I think that's a really good question. I think we'll talk on and on about this. How to demonstrate impact and leadership beyond academics again. I think we've touched upon it, but let's, listen more.
Yeah, I think I touched upon it briefly when I said, how do you overcome low years of experience, but I'll touch upon it again. I think if you don't have the very straightforward definition of what they consider as impact and leadership experience, foray more into the kind of proactivity you've shown in your job, probably talk about how you made a difference to somebody else. It can just be that one other person who joined maybe 10 days after you, and you're 10 days senior to him, right? So you've learned certain things and you guide that person, for a smoother transition. That can just be an impact as well. And there's another thing that I think a lot of people usually don't mention, but I think it's very important, is that admissions committee, generally, they really enjoy when you show that vulnerable side to yourself, right? So that's when you say, because I've seen a trend, at least in the US schools, the thing about EQ and the thing about, self-growth and understanding is something that they place a lot of emphasis on. And I think as we, understand ourselves better, we are able to find those loopholes in ourselves or those weaknesses a little bit more honestly, as you said, as we get older. And we're able to bring that, if you're able to bring that out on paper, right? That's sort of a vulnerable self that you're creating, that, hey, this is who I am. I'm not hiding it. I'm embracing it. And I think because of these experiences or because of the way I am, they've helped me to, overcome certain things. And that itself can mitigate those lack of leadership experiences that you might be perceived as, if, let's say, you have only 2 years of work ex or something like that. So again, it's a very open-ended thing. It depends on your profile in its entirety. I can't really give, again, one answer for all, but it's a good starting point to look at. What, at least for me, that changed was, I had thing. So I'm currently a board member here, and I'm involved with the recruiting, and I thought it was not a big deal, but I was directly involved in improving the, the women representation in our company. And when my consultant heard about it, he's like, why have you not brought this up before? So, what you think might not be important could actually be very important. And that's where I think the MBA and Beyond design, website is designed very beautifully to bring out all those aspects. And then, once you have everything out on paper, I think it's easy to sort of focus on the positives and put it together. So that's, I think, 2 cents on this.
Thanks, Rahul. I'm glad we were able to answer. Yeah, now you can unmute yourself and ask your question. And
I actually meant to give a thumbs up. And
okay, people are confused in the
yes.
That happens. How's your journey going at MBA and Beyond so far in content gathering?
No, this week has been quite hectic. You saw me last week, and I was at my friend's. I was
Yeah.
I came back. There was some backlog in my. So
I need to report this. To this.
I got back to it since yesterday, so I am back on track.
Yeah, got it. All right, that's good, guys.
But it's very introspective, so it is taking its own time.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so we're at let's take Arun's question. Arun is asking, I'm interested in gaining. It's a direct message that has come through to me, but guys, feel free to drop it for everybody in the chat so everybody can see. I'm interested in gaining clarity on the perceived impact of having 10 years of work experience on a candidate's profile. While I value the depth of experience I gained over the years, I am keen to understand if there are any considerations or potential drawbacks associated with this level of experience. Ashwin, Rahul, I'm not sure how many years of work experience you had, but we can talk about it in your opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind chipping in. So I have 6 years of work experience, which is roughly on the average that schools look for. When it comes to, I think, more than 8+ years, I think you fall in that category of beyond what schools are looking for. I'm not saying it's like a hard no, but the number of people in your cohort that make up that sort of a percentage is less. Similarly, 2 years and less, usually silver scholars and all of these people. That is also a small percentage. So when they give an average figure, plus or minus, I think 2-3 is like the bulk of the candidates that will come. Having said that, it's not an abnormality or something like that. People do come. I know people 15 years have come. And when it comes to the challenges that you would face, I think the main thing that you would need to convince the AdCom is that why you're going for a full-time MBA now, and why not maybe for another MBA, like a professional MBA or an executive MBA, to which you would qualify also. So I think that's one of the questions, because I spoke to ladies from Peru who's actually joining Duke. We became really good friends over the last couple of months talking. We guided each other and all of that. She's 36 years old and slightly on the older side for MBAs, as you can see. But then, she reached out to me before her first application submit, and she was all extremely vulnerable, telling me that I don't think, because I'm a little on the older side, they will accept me, whatnot. But I pushed her anyway, because once I had an understanding of the kind of profile that she has, I pushed her to apply anyway. I told her to also add in, again, the mix of schools becomes very important here. If like, because I know the older you get, there's a certain timeline that, okay, this is the year I have to go. I can't push it a year. At 24, 25, you can always do that. You can gamble, push it 1 year extra. It's not going to make a big difference. But the older you get, you have more responsibilities. You're probably married, you have children. And, and maybe you have a certain timeline that, okay, it has to work in this period. Otherwise, I can't make it work. So there are a lot of such personal circumstances. And she went ahead and applied. I think she was waitlisted at Berkeley. She got an admit at Duke. Again, it's not a very great GMAT score. But again, what she highlighted was that, I don't see it as a negative. The fact that I have 2-3 years more experience means I can bring that much more to the table. Right? And there are certain things that cannot be taught. It can only be experienced. So when you are able to speak with that sort of a finesse and that, really have some weight in your words, I think those are the people who will really make business school interesting, because they have seen things, have experienced things that other people haven't. But the reason I think about 5-6 years of work make up the largest cohort is because they are more moldable. They are in that phase of life where they can make a big change and head in that direction. But as you get older and you have commitments, you cannot make a hard 90-degree turn. Not everybody, at least, right? So that is another big reason. But if you can show that flexibility, if you can show that you're bringing something unique to the table with those additional years of work experience, I don't see it, being a problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, Ashwin, do you want to chime in?
So absolutely, I agree with Rahul on this one because it'll be more about the experience that you bring in and the type of work that you've done in those years that can count in and probably add to the school cohort, the different persons, so you can add that. And otherwise, I'd say that it also depends a bit on the location because at least I was that UK school has people where a lot more work ethics is also, prefer. Let's say the average work ethics that I see is let's around 8 years for Imperial. So that's also a factor between the location of the school that you can choose because US is a 2-year MBA, UK on the other hand is a 1-year MBA. So there are people with a larger number of experience also. That would be another factor to look at before applying.
Yeah. And so I feel, let's say, for older candidates, I mean, first of all, I do not consider that business schools actually have any bias towards any age. And I think Ashwin and Rahul have very nicely summed it up. It's why MBA and why now. As long as you have a reason for that, they are very open. They really love that. Like you belong to an underrepresented pool, you are anyways advantageous in a sport. They want diversity, whether it's gender, whether it's ages, whether it's geography, they are looking for a diverse pool. So the more diversified their pool is, I think the more they believe that their class is richer in experiences, and you, of course, depend on a lot of peer-to-peer learning. So it's not that like young people will only learn from older people and older people can't learn from young people. And we were just talking about it a couple of minutes back. It's about you positioning yourself in a way that this is the right time and right need for you of the hour for whatever you want to do in the long run, and how do you position yourself as a global business leader. Now, one thing, however, I'd like to give you examples actually for some of my friends and some of our applicants. So one of our applicants who's applying this year now, his wife actually applied to INSEAD 2 years back, and she was pregnant through the course. I think she delivered like 2 months after she graduated. And then I can give you examples of people, my really close friends who went to, one of them went to Wharton, and my co-founder himself went to INSEAD. His best friend, he was 29 when he went to INSEAD, but his best friend was 34. And I think it's mostly because we are mostly Indian sitting over here. So I think I can only openly talk about it in this close group because we come from the same background, same ethnicity, no matter wherever we're living right now. I think we're culturally trained to think about age as a metric to define a certain thing or a decision that we have to make for our life journey. But you make so many friends when you go to top business school, you will understand that's not how the world works. We think like that, but not I. I mean, a lot of times, and I'll be open about it, I speak to so many female candidates under so much pressure. While I understand that women are really needed at business schools and women are needed in workforce and women are needed, and business schools are openly talking about it. We want to increase the women participation in their business school programs, and we should really leverage that. They are so stressed about the fact that I really have to do it by 25. I really have to do it by 26. And I have to tell them, hold on, you can do it when you're ready for it. You don't have to rush through it with just 2.5 or 3 years of experience. MBA will call you. You don't have to make it fit in. Like you have to, if you think you're half ready, then you're not ready for an MBA. So sometimes people are ready with 10 years of experience. Sometimes people know they get their calling at 5 and 6, which is the average, but that does not define that you cannot apply 10 and 11. You've seen people, going to top business schools with even 15, 20 years of experience. So yeah, thumbs up to that. All of you can apply, whoever is on the older side of the spectrum. Okay, so I think we have no more questions here. While I know you guys are asking for the form, I will drop that. We have 5 minutes, so we'll take one more question that we received from the audience. Give me a second. I lost my question. Sorry, guys. Yeah. How can applicants highlight, I think we've touched upon it, but we can close the loop. How can applicants highlight strengths in their applications while addressing any profile negatives? I think we've touched upon it, unless Rahul and Ashwin, you want to, go ahead.
I think the best way to do that, I'd like to keep it as concise as possible. The best way to do that would be with your optional essay. I think because there are a lot of opportunities to bring out the positives in your application. I think the short answers, big essays, and the resume itself is like a talking point. So there are a lot of areas where you can bring out the positives, but bringing out the negatives actually also shows that you're self-aware. So you know that you're lacking in a certain thing. So for me, it was definitely my GMAT score, considering the caliber of schools I was applying to. So I brought it up and I told them that my plan is to do the MBA and MBA math course, to counteract that low score. And I did it subsequent to completing my submitting my application and shared the transcript to them. So that shows that I say something and I stick to it, not empty promises. So I would start there, because they're not big essays, optional essays about 200 to 50 words. So probably very lightly mention as to what you think are your drawbacks or what you like, and maybe give like a small action plan as to how you're going to, if it can be giving the test again, or it can be to maybe strengthen that part of your profile with something else, maybe taking another course or whatever it is. So maybe that's, I think, a good way to go about. And I think maybe Ashwin can add to that.
Yeah. And I think another pointer on how you can highlight this is to your recommenders. So LORs also hold a lot of importance, and choosing that right recommender, it should not be the senior person at your company, but there's someone who knows you, has worked with you, and can talk about you in detail. So whatever weakness or positives that we mentioned in the LOR also counts a lot. And you can justify it through, how you've been improving them, or how do your other skills substantiate for those negatives. So that's also an area to keep it on.
Yeah. Thanks. I think, Ashwin, there's a question for you, and then we can close with this question, guys. So may I hear you regarding how you selected your schools, and what were your key selling points that you used to counteract those GMAT score?
Okay. So I think school selection happened with my consultant at MBA and beyond. I was particularly clear on the location where I wanted to be based. So I either wanted to be Europe or UK. I was very focused on choosing schools at the area. Other than that, GMAT definitely was the point at which I was considering in terms of also applying to a school, because I was looking at those ranges where I can fit in. And then my post-MBA goal, if it was to work in an industry where, I want to go into finance. London being the finance capital, UK was the area where I was more focused to apply on. Those are the pointers I used to actually figure out the list of schools. And to counteract that low GMAT score, one was definitely the actuarial science courses that I had, just to showcase that quantitative and numerical ability. I also work in an actuarial consultancy, so where numbers, basically I'm turning out numbers every day and explaining it to a client. So I do have that math ability to do it. And it's not that at times it's just a working session where we are calculating numbers on call. So I try to highlight that. And then the different aspects in terms of my startup experience. That this is not the only thing that I'm doing. Hey, I'm doing some other things also. I also had a lot of areas where I've supported women. So this was actually in terms of menstruation, where we had created a community of women, making them more aware. This was a CSR activity at work. So I thought to bring about those different aspects in my application, which could, not let the focus shift only on my GMAT score.
Absolutely. I think that was a brilliant answer, and it really sums up everything. So CFA, anything quantitative that you can, critical reasoning, I think is very important. So if you can showcase that, because that's where people struggle. Whatever they're testing you on, if you can talk about those that you already have those, but you don't have the time to take those exam again or something like that, I think they'll be fine. I think it was a very good session, Ashwin, Rahul. I really enjoyed talking to both of you today, and I hope everybody enjoyed it today and you found it insightful. Thanks for your time, everyone. Thanks to the speakers and the audience.
Before we end the call, I'd just like to say, I think if you were, not able to get your question across, feel free to join our team on LinkedIn, shoot any questions. And I'm shortly joining on as a profile evaluation expert with MBA and beyond in the coming days. So I can help you go over your profile and sort of recommend what's the way. And yeah, if you have any question regarding loan, financing, whatnot, I have done all the research very deeply, so I can maybe give you some pointers there as well. But yeah, feel free to reach out, and hope I could be of some help to the people present here. And thank
Like, it's time to give back to the community, guys. These guys already made it, so now it's time to give it back to you. So feel free to share them as much as you want. And they're coming on board as profile experts. I'm really looking forward to that. More candidates will be going through to them for their best advice. All the best, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Interesting.